Okay, and we're recording. Hello, everyone. Today is 22nd of June, and that's the community meeting for Contour. It's official CNCF meeting, and so we have to follow the code of conduct for CNCF. With not further ado, we don't have a very long agenda for today. I'm going to share screen instead. And yeah, we have two topics. I'm sorry, cool stuff from Travis, and then update from Steve K. So do we have Travis?
I added this cool stuff. So yeah, so Travis yesterday posted in
Okay.
our public Slack about an authserver that he'd written, which integrates into Envoy. And I guess it's used in a bunch of other different projects, but so he's adding support for Contour to do this. So if you click on that link, Orlin, you'll be able to see the project repo. Yeah, so there's a bunch of docs and it does a whole bunch of stuff. So I think it does basic auth, it does all the things right there, JOT tokens and OAuth2 and OpenID Connect, and all kinds of crazy things. So I think in a future meeting, he was going to go and present this and actually give us maybe a demo, maybe explain it some more, but just showing it out there in case folks needed more auth stuff. I know the OIDC workflow was one that I know folks had wanted. We had a PR in progress in our repo, but it still hasn't really gone very far in a few months, unfortunately. So anyway, this would be something to look into. I haven't played with it. I don't know how it integrate, but it should just fit into our extension service model, as the other services do. So I can just call it out that it was pretty cool.
So it's something like a plugin, and we don't have to merge that in the main repo, or just for me.
Yeah, so auth and Envoy is external to the Envoy process. So you basically configure an Envoy and you configure an external auth server to handle authorization requests. So it's always a separate component. So what we've done in Contour is we have the hooks to configure that external service. And then this is one of the services that actually implements that, the other side of Envoy, right? So a request will come in, hit Envoy, and then it'll reach out to this service and say, hey, here's a request, should we, is it authorized or not? If it is, then it'll return, a success code back to Envoy, and then Envoy will respond appropriately back to the caller. Contour has a couple example auth services, basically just basic auth is what we have. But this, again, extends it to do a bunch more. So it looks cool. That's all. Again, I haven't played with it. We'll have to play with it and poke around with it and see how it works. But thanks for Travis for reaching out and sharing this with us. And again, a future meeting, he said he'd probably be able to discuss this more and talk about it. I just was calling it out here in case folks needed it now.
Okay. And the next one is again from you. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's from Steve K.
Yeah, this one's me. Just a quick update on what I've been doing. I talked about the tracing design that I was starting to work on at the last meeting. So I've been continuing to work on that. And related to that, I think it might be a good time to kind of revisit the extension service design and look at possibly making some refinements to that, changes to that, now that we've looked at kind of 4 different use cases for it. So we have external auth, we have global rate limiting, we have the tracing design that I've been working on, and we have an access logging extension service design that we've been iterating on. So have some possible changes in mind for extension service, and I'm probably going to write up a separate design doc for that, which may sort of take precedence over tracing, because we'll want to make the changes to extension service and then be able to take advantage of those for tracing. So lots of design work, and then just trying to keep up with PR reviews as well.
How does everyone feel about the name extension service? Do you feel like it sufficiently captures what it's intended to do? If we do make that, cover all those things that Steve just talked about.
I guess from my perspective, I think the name's fine. one of the things we need to think about is, are we happy with just having the one CRD, which is generic, or do we want to actually have separate CRDs that are like rate limit service and external auth service and things like that, that are more specific to the context in which they're being used. So there are kind of a few different permutations of that. I mean, we could add fields to the existing extension service that are, you could have one field for each specific type of extension service, and then users would only populate one of them. So you'd still only have a single CRD, but you could use it in multiple contexts. But anyway, if we decide to stick with just the one CRD, then for me, the name is fine, but definitely open to other people's thoughts.
Yeah, the use of that is what I know I struggled with originally, because the original use of it was for auth, and auth is needed like a service, like a reference to Kubernetes. The second goal of extension service was to provide updates, status updates as to what that service is doing, and we never really figured out a way to do that. Because in today, if just with auth, it doesn't do a whole lot for you, the extension service. But yeah, no, I agree that I guess it's a balance. Do you want to have a generic CRD that does a bunch of things that's harder to like manage in terms of user experience, or have more specific CRDs that relate to each implementation, whether it's rate limiting or auth or something, and just take that overhead into play. To me, I think I'd rather have us take the overhead of the additional CRDs to have the UX for users be easier to manage, but I don't know. We'll have to see in your design docs, Steve.
I kind of agree with Steve Soga. It's more of a general comment, because I think in the past we've talked about like not creating a bunch of CRDs, right? But I think Contour actually doesn't have many CRDs with respect to some of the other open source projects, right? Maybe Jonas can speak to that as well, but I feel like Contour is extremely light, and if creating different CRDs gives us more flexibility, then there's no reason why we shouldn't consider it. I just remember, we had talked about just not creating, creating as few CRDs as possible, right? I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the one weird thing about creating a CRD for each type is that most of them are kind of singletons within Contour. So you'll have a rate limit service CRD, and you can only ever have a single instance of that CRD. Same thing for access logging and tracing. So it seems a little silly to have a CRD for each type and then only have one instance of it, but does it actually cause any issues? Not necessarily. So I mean, go ahead.
Should those just be config maps then? You know what I mean? Just generic config maps in Kubernetes.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that. Then you lose the ability to use like the status pattern.
Yeah, but I don't know we're really using that anyway. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, we're not today. That's definitely a thing I want to write up in the design doc. I mean, if folks don't think that that's a thing that we need to do, then yeah, we can have that conversation. Yeah. But if we do want to do it, then yeah, we should actually move forward on implementing it. So
yeah, for sure.
Anyway, I'm planning to write up options. I don't think I'm just going to say this is the one thing we should do. We can look at a few different options and decide what we want to do.
Okay. Next one, Carol.
Yeah. So I've been working with these two pull requests. The first one is for adding the configurability for text-based access log formats, and the background for this is that I have a case where we would need to remove the query path from the HTTP access logs, since it might contain sensitive material. So first I added I worked with an Envoy PR that added an extension for a kind of access log command parser that adds the ability to strip the path, the query path from the path, and now this is the the second part of this work, I would like to have this then have it possible to use this envoy command with Contour. So I would need to have the ability to configure the access log, text-based access log format, and of course there already is a possibility for configuring the JSON format. So this is kind of a symmetric feature to being able to configure also the text-based format. And thanks, Steve, Chris. I've got the comments from you, so I have a path forward to work with this, and of course other comments are welcome too. But I think that it's going forward okay, and like you still said that there is probably a place for better documentation somewhere, like there is this JSON format document that exists already for structured JSON logs. That similar kind of document would be in place also here. Yeah.
So this would need an Envoy 1.20 to have that filter. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And how it is now implemented in this current format of the PR is that it scans for the format string for this extension, the formatter extension in that is just like a string request without query, with underscores between the word. And when it recognizes that the format has this string, then it enables the extension. So you don't necessarily need to have that version of Envoy unless you enable or use this command in the access log format.
Okay. Cool.
But of course, it requires the upgrade of the Go control plane, and I like Steve Chris commented here that I agree that it probably could be a good approach to wait for official release. So I put in this current PR. I have an unreleased version. It's just for testing, and I think it's good to wait for a release. I don't know how the release schedule goes with the Go control plane. Is it available immediately when the Envoy release is available?
I don't think they're releasing the Go control plane on like an interval. There was a discussion that I was going to try and help out with, but I think most people use the hashes like we're doing now to get updates to it. So, but they don't have they don't release Envoy and then release the Go control plane with it. I think they're just a separate thing.
I was just going to say we've shipped Contour with non-official releases of Go control plane before, so it's not necessarily a blocker. We just should take a look at what's in that commit and make sure that we're comfortable with it if we do want to ship with that one.
Yeah. I was going to ask that how do you then know which version to pick, because it's quite random then. If something new has been merged in the proto files, then will there be like a version of Go control plane that might have something that nobody else has yet used? Probably.
There could be. I know in the beginning of Contour, that was the API was changing a lot faster than it has today. And each Go control plane update caused a whole bunch of things. Everything became a pointer. All kinds of things got messed around. So it's possible that bumping that could cause an issue, but at the same time, it'd be good to find that out.
I was a little bit surprised that when I upgraded it actually brought some new dependencies with it also that were related to the proto files, or like Go dependencies that were related to the annotations in the proto files. But it's anyway something that is worth of looking a little bit more in close and like like you said, Steve, is that what which version we should use. Yeah. I think this is for this PR. Then I had a second one. Yeah, so this is related to an design document that Steve Soga has written quite some time ago, and I previously started to work with this, but many months ago. But then I now restarted, and this is a new PR, and then the old one is closed. And so the design document is for HTTP proxy conflicts and trying to keep traffic going on, even if there would be some specific errors in the HTTP proxy configuration. So not like currently we are dropping the HTTP proxy instance immediately when there is a first error or first configuration error that renders the whole HTTP proxy as invalid. And so it is then quite easy to break traffic. We have scenarios in our case where we are deploying applications partially. So it might be that services or includes are missing at least for some time, and the HTTP proxies and the virtual hosts that the HTTP proxies are representing, they are then not working at all during this time. So this seemed like a low hanging fruit for me to cover that part of the design doc for HTTP proxy conflicts, though it is much bigger topic, but it seems that it can be tackled like independently from the other ones. And again, I received very good comments here, and I responded last night and today. It got a little bit lengthy, like there are many details that some things are like that there are test cases, unit test cases that are testing failures, but they are actually failing. They have been failing for other reasons than what the test is thinking of testing, and that was uncovered now then when changing the logic that HTTP proxy tries to keep the traffic on even there is a small error. Those are kind of clear, but then there are a few questions that I still have remaining, and I've now listed them here. I hope that you could take another round and look at those.
Yeah, it's getting late in your day. I'll take a look today. So when you get up tomorrow, you'll have some things from me. So thank you for doing this. Yeah, this is great. I think baby stepping this is actually the right approach, because it's when they get too big, then there's too much to reason about. But overall, this looks great. So thank you finding those issues too. I know some of those tests, I was like, what's going on here? And then it makes sense when you say, hey, yeah, they were broken all along.
I was kind of thinking that there is a kind of a rule of thumb that I should like remember always, like these tests are not by me, but anyway, when writing failure tests, it kind of would make sense to first begin from a working test and then adding single failure into that. Then you can be sure that it actually tests that failure, not something else.
Sure. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, I'll take a look again. And
thanks for the review.
Yeah, no worries. This would be great. I think once we get these things in to help, serve traffic. That's one of the goals of Gateway API, I think, is to also do the same thing. Exactly. But we're still trying to figure out when to serve all of them, when not to serve all of them, that sort of thing. Cool. Well, thanks, Taro. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for all your work on this. This is great.
Thank
you. This one was mine. I was just calling this out. I know we've been doing a lot of Gateway API work, and we've sort of switched around how we've approached some of the issues in Gateway API in terms of what the operator is responsible for and what Contour is going to be responsible for. I know we've introduced some differences in terms of we're going to deprecate the gateway name and namespace from the config file and move to a controller name. So the idea of this was that we're sort of getting ahead of ourselves in terms of implementing things without having like an updated design doc. So I think a few weeks ago we decided, hey, we should update this, and this was the doc that I started to just bump, to refresh for now. So this still needs another pass through by me. There's some comments from folks in terms of things to clarify and things to make more clear, that sort of thing. So, but if folks are interested in how Contour is going to implement Gateway API in terms of all its features, then this is a good place to help put your 2 cents into here to get it into design now. That's all. Not much else to say. I know there's a lot of work from Daniel on adding more controller bits. So again, our goal is to move a lot of the controller logic from the operator into Contour, so that when you go to spin up a set of envoys, that Contour itself will be responsible for that. So there's been a lot of work to move that over. So you'll see some of those things changing as we go along. But that's any questions, please comment here or poke us in Slack in Contour on the Kubernetes Slack. That'll be it.
Good. And Gabe.
Yeah, so I put the discussion topic down there. So Gabe, you were interested in writing up the happy path. You want to talk about where you're at, thoughts on the documentation piece and everything?
Sure. So I don't have a big background in it's all kind of new to me, so I'm kind of learning everything. I looked up a couple of videos on ingress controllers and things like that. So I'm just trying to get a good idea of where to proceed. So how to format the documents. So I guess how the steps work and setting up a basic installation. Yeah.
Orlin, can I share my screen a bit?
Sure.
So yeah, what we essentially want is something that ties together several different parts. I think we have a getting started document, which is outside of the docs, but it shows how you can run Contour with kind, I believe. Is this kind? No, this is not kind. Right, Steve?
I think this is any cluster. It's kind of generic.
Okay. So building upon this essentially and saying, hey, here's a good way of deploying and enabling Contour within your Kubernetes environment. And then I think tying into a bit of the architecture within Contour as well to explain certain topics, certain this is what we're doing here within this guide. Not sure we need to dive into the philosophy. I don't think that's necessary for that, but taking items here from the architecture for sure. And I think kind of merging those together into, hey, here's what we would like to do. Here's what we want people to read when they think about how do I install Contour. Would that make sense? I'm asking the maintainers here as well for input.
Hey Jonas, can you repeat your question? I was on a different call just now.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking. So we want to create this happy path that was outlined in the docs assessment, and I think blending together with the getting started guide that we have here, together with the architecture document that we have here to kind of explain a bit more what's happening when we deploy things for the first time, and kind of having a good hey, here's how to install Contour and have it be at a standard good install essentially.
I think it makes sense to me. It's you could almost look at the guides on the website because they are written in a little bit more in that kind of tutorial format, and it sounds like that's what we're kind of going for. It's like a Contour 101, not just here are the mechanical steps to install it, but here's what's going to happen. Here's how you get it going. Here's a sample workload. Here's how you can observe its behavior. So yeah. I think that makes sense. And I would look at some of these to get a sense of kind of the style that we've used for similar content.
And maybe if that getting started page can be like the landing page for all the different bits, like, hey, I'm in AWS, whatever, or I'm in this bare metal environment, or I'm in blah, blah, blah. And then it's a matrix though, because it's like, do you want to use the operator? Do you want to use Helm? Do you want to use YAML? Do you want, like it all, I don't know how to make that all smash together properly, I guess. But yeah, that'd be great. I mean, because this needs a bit more love too. Even this quick start page, it's just one big giant blob of stuff. So that could be a, it just grew. Yeah, it was just one little paragraph to start with, and it grew. So I think that this itself could just get updated by itself. And then, yeah, I agree with what Steve was saying. If you had more detail, maybe leave this, but then click into things like, hey, for more information, go to this. Because it's nice to have the quick page like this, don't have to like scroll through a bunch of things. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to know how to get started. So there is some love. There is some, I guess, to me, there's some love for this because it's so quick and dirty. That's the whole point of it. You know what I mean?
I think it would make sense to move this page into the docs section though. I mean, we can still have the link here to go to that section immediately, but one of the benefits of doing that is that we would get the table of contents here to the right. So we would see like, oh, install with Helm, click. So moving the getting started doc that we have right now over to the documentation, the docs content there, I think would make sense, and then build out from there.
By the way, just looking at the architecture, right? This seems to be when you're deploying contours of deployment and envoys daemons there, right? Towards the bottom. Yeah, this picture. As long as it's consistent with what's happening in the getting started, I think that's fine. Just move this section to the front. Because I remember we do support deploying them together, right? Like the contour pod hosting contour and envoy in the same pod. That's also like an option that
we used to do that, but that doesn't scale very well if you have lots of envoys, because then you have an instance of contour per pod. So it kind of gives you a lot of overhead on the API server and stuff. But yeah, you could do that. You could use a deployment instead of a daemon set. That would work too. But then host ports are a problem. So that's sort of what we struggle with, because they're called examples on the repo. Because the idea is that you might need to change it for your environment or your specific implementation.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And it was hard to cover everyone. So by calling it examples, you kind of wash your hands of the details of everyone's environment and just give you but that, like, this is what Jonas is getting at. Like, what do I want to do? If I have a certain thing in my environment, what do I have to know to change, or what do I have to configure to make sure it fits for me? And how do I understand that without a Slack message and to us maintainers,
Yep.
So no, I agree.
Yeah, I'm okay with this change.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. And maybe just like call it out what Steve just said, right? This way you can scale your envoys, your data plane independently of your control plane, right? It's one of the benefits. But yeah, cool. Thanks, Jonas.
And yeah, well, thank you, Gabe here. And for creating the new docs and everything, if you want to, we can work out of a joint Google Doc as well, if that makes sense. So you can write up things, then you can send it out to the channel. Me, Orlin, other maintainers can take a look at it and make comments and adjustments, and then from there, then we can look at, okay, how do we actually get this into the repository as well? So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, cool. Awesome. Any other questions you have around this?
Like in the happy path, I guess, would you also have the different functions that Contour could do? So like SSO protocols or stuff like that, Like how to set that up?
I think linking out to the different configuration pieces for that would make sense. What do you think, folks?
I think it's implicit, right? Because you're deploying the contour separately from the envoy, right? They're not, like, again, because they're not in the same pod, we require mutual TLS between them, right? Are you talking about merging one of the sections over here on the left into this explicitly? Or are you just talking about just, discussing how envoy and contour communicate and what certs are needed for client, server authentication?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Gabe, but I think you were just saying like linking out to different configuration pieces.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like enabling certain functions and features and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think just linking out to the existing documentation for that would make sense, because then we can look at, okay, maybe we need to improve that piece of documentation as well, and then we can do that instead of clumping everything together into the happy path.
Okay, that sounds good. Sounds great.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gabe, for working on this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, with that, I think we can conclude for today. Right.
I just have one question for
Okay.
Steve and maybe Daniel as well, that are working on the gateway stuff. But like with all the thing that Nick is working on, right? Like gateway selecting routes, does that change the things that we've already implemented for Gateway API? Or does that change how you're implementing certain things right now?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what we do. There's a lot of stuff that can change that will break everything we have now. So we need to decide if we're going to maintain versions or not in Contour and how we do that. We haven't done that up till now in terms of supporting multiple versions of an API. So
yeah, because I think he like presented it yesterday on the upstream, right? And it was pretty well received. Just wondering, does that change the prioritization of some of the things you're working on? Are we waiting for that stuff to materialize in the upstream first, or does it not matter?
to me, it's got to be real yet. It's not real. It's just a Google Doc still. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, it would need to be merged in Alpha 2, and then it doesn't exist already. There probably needs to be an issue created, migrating to Alpha 2. But I think there's probably bigger fish to fry in the near term, but might not be a bad idea to have that issue just to track the work that needs to happen for upgrading to Alpha 2.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Last call. Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, and talk to you next time. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Later.